Well, hello and welcome to the channel. I'm glad you could join me for this next part. This is part 4 of our UH-1D Huey gunship by Revell. Before we get too far into the rest of the build here, a few things I want to point out. And these are from the comments that you, the viewers, have placed on this build. First of all, I want to point out this scoop area and then this piece here on the side, which is kind of narrow. Those are indicative of the B and C model helicopter. And this here is supposed to be a D model. So obviously the box art is not a D model, but if we flip it over, we can see on the side of the box that what we have in the kit is the D model. There's the extra door because the D model and the H model Hueys had a larger cabin area. And also, I'd like to point out that one of our viewers, who's actually a Huey pilot, informed me that only the B model, the C model, and the M model Hueys were actually built into gunships. So if you are looking for a Huey kit that is historically accurate, this is probably not the kit for you, but that is not going to stop us from making it into a gunship. We're going to go ahead and build it into a gunship. So special thanks to Lucas and CS for pointing those items out for us. And please, if you have first-hand information about specific models and kits and the versions that I'm building, please leave them in the comments for everybody to see, because the more information we have, the better models we can build. Now that we got that mostly cleared up, we're going to continue on with our build, and we'll be working on the engine in this video, and we're going to get it all painted up. But first, we've got a lot of work to do. So taking a look at our instructions here, in the last video, we finished the assembly of the crew area, the cabin area, I should say. And now we're going to work on step 3. This is the transmission, the engine, and we're also going to attach it to the frame structure that holds our engine and transmission in place. And we also have some control linkages and stuff for our rotors that we'll be installing. And since I intend to paint all this up pretty much at the same time, we'll be also doing step 4, which is our main rotor shaft here, which we're going to be painting at the same time we paint our engine. And so there are some items there that we need to attend to so that we'll be able to get everything assembled and attached to the interior compartment. So it's in these little areas here that we see the real age of the kit. These parts, even though they've got alignment pins, they really don't match up as well as we would like for them to. And like I say, this is an old kit, so a lot of sanding is going to be involved in trying to maintain the shape that is a good representation of what these parts are supposed to be representing here. The transmission, not so bad. The engine, however, as you can see here, we had a whole lot of filling to do, and I hope you didn't mind me skipping over and not showing you all the filling, but you can see how these parts are kind of mismatched, and so there's a lot of areas that do need to be filled and sanded. I've got a little bit more sanding to do on this, but I won't make you suffer through all that. But I would like to point out that here on our exhaust, it's not perfectly round, which of course on the helicopter, on the real thing, it would be. So some filling is necessary, and you have to be a little crafty here in getting that sanded out. So after filling and letting it dry, I do use like the handle of a file to help me reshape the inside of this a little bit here. Try to get it as round as possible. Now with any old kit, it's always a good idea to test fit everything to make sure everything sets the way you want it to when you start to glue everything up. So here we're just going to take and dry assemble our transmission and engine and set it onto its mounting points on that little structure there to make sure that everything's going to go together the way, way we think it's supposed to go together. And there are some critical areas here that we need to pay particular attention to. And that's with these control items here. Now this part is keyed so that it'll only go on one way. And then it's also keyed for the next part that goes on above it. But what we're looking at here is to make sure that these parts sit square on top of the transmission. And there's that second part there. I think it's the collective. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's very important that it is square to the base. So what I'm going to do is take a ruler, and I'm just going to measure it to make sure that these items are equidistant. And that way, hopefully, our main rotor shaft will be vertical once everything's assembled. So now we're going to look at our main rotor shaft, and as you can see, there are large ejector pin marks here on those counterbalance attachments here. So I'm going to fill those with some sprue goo and let that harden up, and I'll be able to reshape that. Also, you can see here areas where need to do the same thing. A little bit of reconstructive surgery there, and get it to look like the opposite side. And just a little bit of attention to detail on it. Hopefully we can bring this around to looking more like what the original looks like. So the next piece is the center hub here that holds our rotors, our main rotors, into place. And I didn't notice this before until I started working with this part. And hopefully you can see here that it is bowed substantially. So we're going to have to straighten that out. Now I did start a straightening process on this, and what I ended up doing was melting the linkage over here. And as you can see, that's not exactly what we wanted to do. So we're going to have to fix that, but we don't want to melt the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to cut these off for now. And I'll just use some stretch sprue to fix the one that is rather bowed there. I don't think it's going to be the right length by the time we try to straighten it. And the other one we will preserve, and then we can continue on with our straightening process. So this is how I do it. I'm just using a thin piece of wood here, but it needs to be substantial enough to be able to take the bow out of the polystyrene plastic. So we're just going to clamp that down, and then we'll put a clamp on the other side as well. And this will hold it in the shape that we want it to retain. And now we can continue our straightening process hopefully without melting anything else. And now after I've let this part cool to the touch, I'm going to remove it from the wood, and we're going to check and see if it is straight enough for us to use. And I think that's pretty good. We're going to go with that. So I've said it many times before on this build and any other build, you need to test fit a lot of things. Now here I went ahead and I've filled some of those sink marks that were in this main hub here. I used this water-soluble Perfect Putty to do most of the work, and then I did come back over top of it and use this Mr. Surfacer 500 to fill any little areas, and we'll just buff and sand that down. And then we'll just check the fit real quick here. And remember, test fitting is your best friend. Take nothing for granted, especially in this particular kit. So we're going to kind of want to make sure that that's going to set correctly into place, and it seems to. One of the problems, though, that I have found after straightening this piece is that if we attach the bottom bracket for our main rotor and then we set our main rotor into place, there's actually a gap there. So I want these rotors to be as straight as possible. So what we're going to do, I think, is we're going to attach those bottom bracket pieces once we've attached it to the main rotor shaft, and that will give us the best opportunity to make sure that our rotors are straight. But we can't attach these parts here until after we've attached it to the main rotor, because it just won't fit in. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to use Tamiya Extra Thin for this, and I'm going to put a little bit on that square locator notch in the center of our hub there, and also we're going to put it on that square post. And now we can set the part into place. Now it's really, really important that this part be square, so I'm just going to use the end of my ruler kind of as a square, and align this up as best I can. And we'll need to let that set up so it's nice and solid before we attach those bottom brackets. Now with that set into place nice and solid, we're going to go ahead and attach these brackets on the bottom. That way we close up any gap that will possibly keep our rotors from not being straight across. So a little bit of Tamiya Extra Thin there, and then we will go ahead and put a clamp on that. And then we can go ahead and glue up the other side, and we'll let that set up for us. So here we've gone ahead and we've set everything up for painting. I'm just going to go ahead and give everything a coat of Vallejo acrylic flat black as our base primer, and then we can go ahead and paint the parts what color we want them to be. In preparation for that, after I've painted the black, I have masked off the exhaust for the engine. Now Revell calls for titanium. I don't have titaniums, but I do have galvanized, which is probably that galvanized silver will look pretty close to titanium, if I can say that. So, and here you can see I've already painted these parts, and they look pretty decent. And we also painted our main rotor shaft assembly as well, and along with our control elements that go on the top of our transmission. And while I had the airbrush out, I went ahead and painted up that frame structure there olive. Give us a little bit of different contrast and color down inside there. It may not be very visible, but if we decide to leave the engine covers open, you can see that we're going to have some different color variations there to look at. So that should look pretty good, I think. So here we're going to use a little bit of that olive craft paint, and I'm going to paint the engine mounting bracket this color, just to kind of give it a little bit of a little bit of something to look at, I guess, down in there, if we do decide to leave that engine cover open. And it kind of looks like that right there. Okay. And also we're going to use a little bit of this Panzer Gray here to add a little bit more detail to some of the little items here on our engine. And we're going to use a little bit of Tamiya XF56. This is the metallic gray, and we'll paint that shaft that goes to our transmission. And here I'm going to use a little bit of that Panzer Gray here to paint up some I think it's an actuator of some kind and a hose that goes to it. Just kind of add these details in. Now most of this stuff would have been steel braid, but Of course, if you were painting silver over silver over silver, it's not going to be very visible. I really don't think we're going to be able to see too much of this anyway, but we'll just go ahead and paint it up. That'll just give us some details down inside there. Something to look at if we're able to see it. So now I think it's time to go ahead and attach our engine and transmission. We're going to use this medium CA glue to do that. And the first part that we're going to put in will be our transmission. And you just want to make sure that we get those notches aligned and that it's as square as we can get it and get it pressed into place. And that CA glue will give us, since it's medium strength, give us a moment to kind of move things around a little bit before it takes hold. And with our transmission in place, we can go ahead and set our engine in place. Very carefully. Wow, this is like watching paint dry. Anyway, I do get it stabbed into place here. And we get it set down on its mount, which I've already put the CA glue down those contact points there on the back. Now, since our parts are all painted, I'm going to use a little bit of CA glue here for the first control linkage that goes in. I just want to make sure that that stays in place. And that's that first keyed part. We want to make sure that it sits all the way down. And we get our key lined up. So for our next part, we're just going to use the Tamiya Extra Thin for it because I need to check the alignment of it and make sure that it measures out correctly for our linkages. So there's no stress on this part, so I don't feel the need to use CA glue on this, but we will set it into place. And then I can go ahead and measure it and make sure that it's the same on both sides. As square as I can get it to the base of the transmission there. And then I'll just add a little bit more CA glue to set it aside there and let that set up for us. So here we have those linkages for all of our control mechanism here. And I've just left these in the black that we primed everything in. Hopefully that'll let them stand out against that galvanized silver color that we have there. And we do have to fit this little toggle here into place. It is a little bit too long, so we will just cut the end of it a little bit. That way I can get that pin to line up and go through the mounting bracket. And just a little bit of CA glue on the end of it there to attach it to the control. And we stick the pin straight through. And then the other linkage is just going to glue to that pin that sticks out. And it can be just a little bit fiddly, but we do get it into place here without dropping it too many times. So we have 3 more control rods to attach, and we'll pretty much put them in the same way. A little bit of CA glue on the tops of them to get them to stay up into the linkage point, and then I'll just put a little bit of Tamiya Extra Thin on the bottom to hold the bottoms of them into place. And so this is the result. Once we get it all done, it looks pretty good. I'm kind of pleased with that. That should look pretty good in the chopper. So next up, we're going to use X22 Tamiya Gloss Clear, thin for your airbrush, of course, and we're going to spray our entire assembly. Once that dries, we're ready to use some panel liner. This will help bring out some of those little details. And to apply this, I'm going to be using this paintbrush that has the long bristles and is very pointed on the end. The long bristles will hold a lot of product for us and allows us to not have to go back and dip the brush in again and again as much as we would if we were using the applicator brush. Also, that really thin tip on the brush kind of keeps us from having a lot of cleanup. But we've still got cleanup to do. And I'm going to use this Testors enamel thinner to clean that up, since the panel liner is a enamel-based product. So all we need is a dampened brush, a clean brush, and we can kind of use it just as a eraser and clean up all those little nasty spots that we don't want to appear on the model when we're done. Now once our panel liner's all dry, we're going to use this Model Masters Acryl Flat Clear and go over the entire assembly to seal everything in for us. The added benefit to that is that flat clear will help dull down and darken that galvanized silver paint that we've used, and makes it look a little bit closer to titanium. Now that we've done all that, we're going to use this medium CA glue once again, since we're gluing painted surfaces to painted surfaces, and we're going to go ahead and attach our engine to the crew compartment. Now this medium CA glue will allow us to shift this around a little bit if we need to get everything into place, and we just need to carefully insert it, keeping our fingers crossed that everything works out well. Now there is a slight bow to that framework. Well, it's not really a bow, it's a little twist to it. So I do have to pull it down into place, but the medium CA glue allows us to make those small movements and get it positioned correctly. So it's starting to come together for us. So Revell wanted us to go ahead and insert the main rotor shaft and put that little clip on the bottom. But we're not going to do that. We're going to leave that clip off because it'll make it easier for us to assemble the main rotors and do all the finished painting and everything. And I don't think it's important that that item be firmly attached to the chopper. So we're gonna leave that out. So that'll do it for part 4 of our build here on our Huey gunship. Special thanks to all of my subscribers. It's because of you guys that I keep making these little videos, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Please feel free to leave me a comment, and don't worry about hurting my feelings. So, any information that you can provide for myself and all the other viewers that watch these videos is well appreciated. If you're new to the channel and you're not a subscriber, hopefully I've earned your subscription today, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified when I post a new update to this particular build and to many more to come. So until next time, guys, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.